Hi, my name is Charlotte Skeen. I'm a registered dietitian with Santa Ana's Wellness Program. Today we're going to talk specifically about supplements. So in all of our diet and lifestyle, inevitably I get asked some questions about what supplements are best, what supplements would work for individual lifestyles. So I'm going to kind of outline some of those things for you today. And then if there are follow-up questions afterwards, I'll go ahead and put my email on the screen that you can contact me directly for more information about that. So when we talk about supplements, why we use them, there are a couple varying different reasons. First and foremost, the goal is always to meet some nutritional need. We're either looking to add some more to our diet or to replace something in our diet. And so what that means can be different individually, but overall we're looking to meet some nutritional need. And then beyond that, we might be looking to actually improve a nutrient deficiency. So let's say you received a blood test, you're low on vitamin D, you go to the store, you pick up a supplement as prescribed by your doctor, start supplementation with that, and we should see blood lab values rise. Same thing with things like iron deficiency, anemia. In those cases, we're looking to correct deficiencies. Beyond that, we know there are certain supplements that can enhance athletic performance. These are kind of wide and varied in their options, but overall their goal is to somehow improve your performance during your training session, improve your recovery after session, or somehow overall change how your body reacts to athletic performance or fitness in general. And then beyond that, sometimes they help us to achieve our personal fitness goals. Most of the time that's related to body composition. So whether that's changes in muscle mass, lean mass structure, whether it's loss of body fat mass, whatever that can be, we can always use supplements as an addition to our overall food intake for the day as a way to kind of improve our body's physiological structure. The most important thing to note, though, is that without a well-designed nutrition program in general, supplements are not the Band-Aid that fixes everything, right? So there is no magic pill. There is no way that we take one thing and kind of achieve the goal that we want to achieve. It continues to take activity and fitness and good hard work, but then it also takes the entirety of our diet as a whole. So if we look at our diet and our overall fitness lifestyle as a pyramid structure, we know that each of us need a baseline level of overall calories. We have our basal metabolic rate, which is how many calories we would burn if we just laid in bed over the course of the day. The entire 24 hours, you're lying still and not getting up and moving. Now that case is unlikely for most of us, so we use what's called an active metabolic rate. And an active metabolic rate takes into account our daily movement, our gym sessions, our activity on the job. All of those things translate into our active metabolic rate. So once you know how many calories you burn on an average basis, we then aim to consume a similar calorie load based on what our overall goal is. If we want to maintain weight, we consume as much as we burn, and that's the goal, to maintain. If we want to gain weight, we typically consume a little bit more than we burn. And if we want to lose weight, we consume a little bit less than we burn. Generally oversimplified by kind of using that calories in, calories out method. But for the purpose of this example, it works for us. So once we've met our overall calories, we can then kind of focus on taking a look at our plate, what's in front of us. Are we eating our overall calories by using fast food and unhealthy options, or are we meeting our overall calories by including whole grains, lean protein, fruits and vegetables, so that we can get the vitamins and minerals that we need in our day? Then beyond that, once those two pillars are set, we kind of focus on nutrient timing. And nutrient timing is essentially figuring out in the course of your day what you can do at what point in time that actually helps you to perform the most optimally, whether it's recovery, whether it's performance. Could be anything from a pre-workout snack, it could be a post-workout recovery option, or it could even be a snack before bed that helps you in case you end up getting those late night, early morning calls, to make sure that you have fuel available for that. So once those things are in place, then we can kind of focus on supplements specifically to go back through and fill in the gaps in any of the rest of our categories. So we may use something like a vitamin or a mineral to replace the micronutrients that we're not getting on an average basis. We may use a protein powder to help with our recovery after a training session, which is considered to be nutrient timing. So we use this upper category to help us fill in the blanks. Beyond that, when we do focus on what we're choosing on a daily basis, more often than not, we want to use what's called a food first mentality. And that helps us just to kind of take a look at, first and foremost, is there something that we actually need if it is a supplementary product? Can we fill our needs with our diet? A lot of the times we can. And sometimes that involves kind of tracking your food and seeing in a nutrient log or in a calorie calculator whether you are short on certain nutrients or whether there are things that you're missing. But in general, a lot of the times we can actually use food to meet all of our needs. Beyond that, we know that food is typically most cost effective. The more supplements we continue to purchase, the more we continue to spend money, our hard-earned money, on the things that we're kind of putting into our pantry and our closet, so to speak. So more than that, we want to kind of take a look at whether or not it's truly needed. And then beyond that, is it safe? We know that food has the expectation of being what we want it to be. If I go to the store and I pick up ground beef, right? I know that it's going to be beef in that package and not something else that's been replaced, mainly because there are regulating bodies that check on those types of things. We also know that there are regulating bodies like the FDA that checks for things like recalls, right? They notify us when there is an issue with our food supply. All in all, food is much more regulated than our dietary supplements. So that being said, it's not to say dietary supplements are bad. It's just that we have to be wise in the ones that we choose and in the certifications that we look for. So how we evaluate a supplement. If we have decided that there is something that we need and there is something that we'd like to start to begin to take, we ask ourselves a few questions. First and foremost, does a supplement claim on that bottle make sense? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? We know that there is no magic pill that's going to kind of solve the problem just by consumption of that product. We have to look at it as an addition to an overall lifestyle. From that point, we can kind of go ahead and look for good, solid research studies or scientific evidence. Now, this isn't social media evidence, it isn't word of mouth evidence, but it's good, solid, scientific basis from certain research studies, right? They're actually testing the product on some number of individuals to see if, and foremost, it's safe, but second to that, if they actually saw the results that they were expecting to see. And then, is the supplement legal and is it safe, right? Ultimately, whatever you're putting in your body has the potential to affect your overall health and physiology. You do need your body to perform well in this job. So therefore, we can't let something risk that based on an overall objective that we may or may not actually see from that product. So beyond that, the most important thing that we can do is actually look for what we call verifying agencies. And these verifying agencies take a look at each supplement product and test for their quality, their safety, and to make sure there's no unwanted substances in that product. So when it comes to sport-specific supplements, think protein powders, aminos, creatine, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the information on verification comes from one of two labels. There is one that's called NSF Certified for Sport, and that's this blue and orange label here. And then there's one that is Informed Sport or Informed Choice. It's the same company. And what those companies essentially do is they take a look at the supplement product itself and essentially say, does this product adhere to the claims that they intend to make, right? Is what is in the bottle actually what is stated on the label and in the package? Does it contain any sort of levels of contaminants in any way? And farther than looking for contaminants, they actually looked for banned substances. That's actually checked by over 280, a list of what could potentially cause harm in individuals, especially for athletes. So if we're talking about kind of the gold standard for levels of safety, the NSF Certified for Sport and Informed Sport or Informed Choice are actually used by corporations like the NFL, Olympic agencies, NCAA, to make sure that their athletes are consuming the safest product that's not going to cause any physiological harm or flag on a potential drug test. Beyond that, when we talk vitamins, minerals, right? So if NSF and Informed Sport are for sport-specific supplements, we kind of have to take a look at one that's available for the vitamin mineral category. So the vitamin mineral verification is going to be what we refer to as USP verified. It'll have this green and gold seal on the bottle. And they do a very similar thing where they look for quality, for potency, for safety. This one also actually takes a look and see if the product will break down and release into our system during the time of digestion, right? Because if we're going to consume a supplement, we want to be able to actually get something out of it before our body ends up excreting it. They check for any sort of contaminants like heavy metals, microbes, pesticides that would potentially be in that product. And then ultimately they're checking things like dosage. If I pick up a certain dose of a vitamin or mineral, I expect to actually receive that dose in the meantime. The most popular brand that is USP verified is what's called Nature Made. It's the brown bottle with the yellow lid. It's at most available grocery stores and drugstores out there. If for the NSF Certified for Sport, Informed Choice or Informed Sport, and USP verified, if you are going to actually actively look out for these products, the easiest way to do so is to go on each of their websites. Each of their websites will have an option that says find a supplement. And you basically can go through and select what product you're looking for, and it'll give you a drop-down menu of different brands and locations of where to find a specific supplement that has these verified labels. If in fact you do see these labels on the bottle, could be at the grocery store, could be at some specific nutrition shop. That does mean that they do have the verification and it has been certified. Okay, so that's definitely the thing that you want to look for. If you are looking at a product that doesn't have those verifications, it's not to say that it's a bad product, but you just need to be wise about doing diligence to look at the label. If there's a lot of products that you don't know what they mean or how they would affect your body, then it is something that you'll want to look into. You'll want to kind of do some research to know the expectation of consuming this supplement and how that affects you physiologically. So that just takes a little bit more on your behalf to make sure that you're kind of putting your health first rather than just looking for the ease of those kinds of labels. Now, beyond that, when we kind of focus on things that we could all benefit in some way or another, with supplements, it's very hard to say there's a blanket statement, this is good for everybody, right? We all have different lifestyles, we have different workout routines, we have different body structures and different goals. But in general, there are a few products that most people in our society can benefit from. First and foremost being a multivitamin. Now, a multivitamin is much looked at as an insurance policy. It's our insurance policy to say, hey, I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job with my overall nutrition intake. I'm eating good meals, I'm eating regularly, I don't think that there's much I'm missing. However, even if we're making the best effort to actually put these things into our body, on occasion, we don't digest or break down as smoothly as we would like to. Or in times of stress or inflammation, we're not absorbing all of the nutrients that we're actually putting into our body from food. We actually kind of excrete some of those in the process. So multivitamins are our way of saying, hey, just in case, here's a little extra. And we know that in an athletic population, we do need a little bit extra, more so than that of a sedentary individual as it is. So again, just kind of adding in some more vitamins, minerals, nutrients for our body to try and pick up and absorb. Now, when it comes to vitamins, there are two specific types of vitamins. We have fat-soluble and we have water-soluble. Fat-soluble vitamins are digested and absorbed, basically broken down in the presence of fat. However, they also have the potential to be stored in our fat cells in our body in certain quantities. So, vitamins A, D, E, and K actually have the potential to build up some level of toxicity if we were greatly over-consuming them for long periods of time. It's not common to see levels of toxicity, but we have to understand that it is possible if we were to consume in the long term, overconsume in the long term. Now, on the flip side, we have water-soluble vitamins. Those are broken down and digested very easily, and can actually be excreted in our urinary waste or our water excretion if we consumed excess. So this is why if you were to kind of take a look at a label for something like a B12 bottle or something like a package of vitamin C, a lot of times you'll see 15,000% of the daily value or 20,000% of the recommended daily value. And the reason being is because you're basically trying to superload your body with those extra nutrients that you think you might need because you're getting sick or feeling run down. So your body's going to take what it can, and then anything in excess will just be excreted as waste without potential for toxicity with those, right? So two very different circumstances, but ultimately something just to be mindful of. Now, a secondary product that is good for most athletes in general, or most people within this population, would be an omega-3. Omega-3s are highly anti-inflammatory for us in nature and actually help with anything from brain health to heart health. They relieve joint pains, aches, and inflammation associated with workouts or with arthritis. And then overall, systemically, we know that it can actually help us to recover from a hard workout because it's reducing the inflammation that's caused by that stress on the body. So all things considered, it's been thought of in the past that we were generally okay if we were consuming some sort of fish on a daily, weekly basis. However, we now recognize that we need more omega-3s in our diet than we actually thought in the past. So even if you were consuming fish and you also consumed an omega-3 capsule or oil, it's really not going to add anything extra as far as harm, more so than all the good that it's potentially going to provide for you. So it is something that we want to consider on a daily basis. Typical dosage is somewhere between 2 to 4 grams. Most of that is what you'll find with just an over-the-counter. Now, the typical forms of omega-3s are either going to be in fish oil, krill oil, or you'll even see marine algae oil for someone who may be looking for a vegan or vegetarian source, right? So any or all of those options are completely fine. They're pretty equivalent. Just go with what you can find the most accessible to you, and that's most cost effective as well. And then lastly, one of the things that's kind of beneficial for most of the population would potentially be a probiotic. And a probiotic is basically good bacteria that you are intentionally putting into your GI tract so that you can kind of help grow your immune system and kind of promote good, healthy digestion and absorption through your GI tract. Now, we know that up to 70% of our immune system is actually located in our gut, but we actually know that a lot of hormone and even neurotransmitter production comes from our gut as well. So a neurotransmitter like serotonin, which is a feel-good hormone that helps us to be relieved of stress or feel in a good mood or get positive amounts of sleep, is actually produced in our gut microbiome. So building good gut bacteria helps us in a lot of different ways between brain and body. Now, if you're experiencing any sort of symptoms of GI issues, IBS, IBD, etc., then this would be something that I would consider an extra benefit for that person as well. as far as helping to kind of enhance digestion, absorption, waste clearance, etc., regularity. This is not something that will make you go, but it'll just kind of help you to have a good bacteria that overall affects your total digestion. Typical dose of probiotics is somewhere in the range of 1 to 20 billion colony-forming units, or CFUs. Again, this is something that you can easily find at a grocery store or otherwise, so you are more than welcome to kind of go with what's easiest and most accessible. Some of them will be refrigerated, some of them will be shelf stable. As far as whatever you choose, I don't necessarily believe that one is better than the other. It's more so understanding that because there are live bacteria in that product, you need to maintain the product the way it was purchased. So if you purchased it from a fridge, keep it in a fridge. If you purchased it on the shelf, try to keep it in a heat stable area like where it was purchased. And that's all you kind of need to know about probiotics. So multivitamin, omegas, probiotics, those are a little bit more of the general population recommendation. Most, if not all of us, can get some benefit from those three things. Now, beyond that, we kind of focus on the things we consider to be sport specific. And these are much more individualized to the person's goals, to their overall body composition. Are they an aerobic athlete? Are they a strength training athlete? What does that kind of look like in the total of their day? So when it comes to sport-specific supplements, we first and foremost consider benefit versus risk, right? Is there anything that could potentially cause any issues or harm with overconsumption or with long-term consumption? Maybe it's just something that doesn't agree with you or your system. These are all things that we have to take into account when we're adding something to our sport-specific supplement realm. Beyond that, we look at safety, right? So we know that best choice would be anything from that NSF certified for sport or informed sport verification. Otherwise, choosing reputable brands who have good marketing process out there to actually inform you about what's in their product and how it's going to affect you as an individual. Then we take a look at cost, right? So we don't want to be pouring in a whole bunch of money into supplements if we can actually get what we need from our food, right? A lot of times when I work with people, there are things that they are getting plenty of once we kind of take a look at our diet overall. So we end up kind of saving money here or there or taking away one thing in place of another that allows us to kind of take a look at the overall picture of that person's lifestyle with food rather than just relying on supplements on its own. Something to consider is always the longevity of the use. Do we plan on using this in the short term versus the long term? Is it something that's meant to be cycled where we take it for a short while, take a break, and then go back on? And then from there too, even more specifically, is there a loading dose, right? Do we just start taking it straight out of the bottle, or is there a time period where we need to kind of focus on building it up in our system? Sport-specific supplements may entail each of these questions or maybe just some of them. But again, it's what we need to kind of ask ourselves to make sure that we're doing due diligence. So the way I'm going to go through this starts with things that would be potentially beneficial pre-workout, right? So in a before workout circumstance, and then we'll kind of transition to things that may help before and during, and then after that, we'll cap it off with things that basically help our recovery after the fact. So this is not kind of like a ranking of things I think are first, but it's actually just more time specific. So if we were thinking about something to do before a workout, one of the things that we have to discuss is caffeine. And a lot of the time, caffeine gets a bad rap, right? We know for a fact that overconsumption can interfere with sleep cycles, right? We know the implications of overconsumption as far as heart issues, right? Change in heart rhythm, increase in blood pressure. But what we fail to kind of recognize sometimes is actually the performance enhancing benefit that moderate controlled doses of caffeine can offer. So think about you trying to enter the gym or a training center with little to no energy, little to no sleep, little to no motivation. how good is that workout really going to be, right? Unless you can kind of dig deep and pull it together, it's probably going to be a little lackluster and probably not your most intense or your highest weight load, etc. Now, if we flip that and we had kind of awakened our system, if you will, we initiated our fight or flight response, which kind of starts some of the release of some of our neurotransmitters that says, hey, I'm awake. Hey, I'm alert. Not only are you more mentally prepared for that workout, you're more physically prepared for that workout. And hopefully what that means, in addition to having a better workout overall, is it's a safer workout, right? So when we are kind of run down and depleted, it's more likely that we open ourselves up to injury, right? We're not mentally focused on what we're doing. We're just kind of there to go through the motions. So anytime we kind of need that boost, naturally occurring sources of caffeine, like such in coffee or tea, are actually beneficial to help our system wake up, become more alert, and receive some of the performance enhancing benefits that we would get out of a longer, stronger, more intense workout. Now, we know that on average, a recommended dose is no more than 200 milligrams pre-workout. Understanding that an 8-ounce cup of coffee is somewhere around 100 to 150 milligrams of caffeine, and a similar cup of tea is probably closer to 50 to 70 milligrams of caffeine. So what you choose is important. Obviously, kind of overconsumption of pre-workouts, energy drinks, all those kinds of things have different implications than does a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, whatever your choice may be. So just be mindful of kind of how that works for you physiologically. Now, taking that caffeine concept and kind of one step further into a pre-workout type supplement. Now, a pre-workout type supplement generally has some level of caffeine in it, but the reason that a lot of people find they have issues tolerating a pre-workout supplement is because not only do they have caffeine, but there are also other sorts of stimulants, herbal or otherwise, added on top of that product. So you take caffeine and then you have ginseng, guarana, taurine. All of these things are added on top of that already occurring caffeine value. So you look at the bottle and it says, oh, 200 milligrams of caffeine. Okay, that's what I'm supposed to get. But then beyond that, it's failing to recognize the effect that those other herbal stimulants might offer. So a lot of times we can get by with just a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, but there are a lot of us who still reach for that pre-workout, for that extra jump start, if you will. So just understanding what that means for you physiologically is very important, considering some of the potential side effects of overstimulation or elevated heart rate, anxiety, insomnia, elevated blood pressure. Those are some pretty significant cardiac responses, so we just need to be mindful of that. Now, if you are choosing a pre-workout, there are a couple things to look for. Again, caffeine, we know to be a booster. Creatine is of added benefit for some people, and we'll kind of break that down on its own in a few slides, so we'll take a look at that. Beta-alanine is another one that is important that we can kind of take a look at further. Branched chain amino acids, and then nitric oxide boosters. Nitric oxide boosters effectively create vasodilation within the body. Vasodilation helps to transport oxygen and nutrients to working tissues. So the more often that our working tissues can receive that oxygen load or receive those nutrients means we'll clear things like lactic acid, or our heart doesn't have to work as hard to get the oxygen where it needs to go, so we have a little bit more time left in us before we hit fatigue. Okay, so nitric oxide boosters can come from something like beet juice or beetroot powder, which is actually a food product with little to no supplement implications that something like pre-workout would have. So understanding that would be part of your risk versus benefit analysis. The things we want to avoid are excess caffeine, stimulants, any sort of thermogenics, meaning fat burners or banned substances. If a herbal supplement is unknown, either look it up, do the research, figure it out what it is and what kind of it's meant to do. And then other than that, we're looking for things that have excess sugars, right? We don't need to kind of throw a lot of caloric, sugar-dense stuff into our body right before our workout, unless you intend on doing a very, very long workout in which you know you're going to need some of that carbohydrate recovery fuel. So all the things to look for in a pre-workout can either be found in that substance by itself with some of the implications of the caffeine and stimulants, etc. Or what we can do is we can actually break out those pieces by themselves and allow you to pick and choose what you might need. So beyond that, right, we know that beta-alanine is typically in a pre-workout. Now, we don't have to use a pre-workout supplement to get beta-alanine. We can actually get it on its own. It's usually in a powder or in a capsule, depending upon which brand you choose. Beta-alanine is an amino acid that we actually produce in the body. We make it in our liver, and it's found in most of the meat and fish products that we consume on a daily basis. Now, that being said, if it's something that we typically consume or we produce in our body, it's generally going to be on the safer side because systemically we already know what it is and how to process it. Beyond that, we know that beta-alanine has actually been shown to improve exercise performance, particularly for high-intensity short-term exercise. So think of something like HIIT training, high-intensity interval training, circuit training, sprint training, anything where you're kind of measuring that time allotment to be somewhere around 1 to 4 minutes can actually help improve your response to lactic acid. So beta-alanine works because it is a buffer. So when we're undergoing intense activity, our body starts to produce and release lactic acid. Therefore, if we have a buffer to come in and neutralize that acid, we should be able to get a little bit longer out of that sprint or a little bit more duration from whatever interval we're doing. If it's in regards to strength training, right, and we can get a few more reps out of each set, that's progress that we're making. Over the long term, that adds up to collective physiological improvement, improved workouts, which could also change your body composition. So beta-alanine is typically dosed at about 4 to 6 grams per day, generally in cycles of 2 to 4 weeks. Then you can take a break, give your body a rest, allow it to kind of regroup, recharge, so we're not over-consuming, and then we can kind of go back at it a week or so later after that for another 2 to 4 week cycle. The one thing about beta-alanine that some people experience and some people don't is a tingling effect or a skin tingling sensation. We call it paresthesia, but effectively it's usually in the hands and fingers or sometimes in the jawline. But when you take beta-alanine, it just has kind of that nerve response that can create some numbness and tingling in the hands. Now, it is temporary. It's more annoying than it is harmful, and a lot of times it will go away when you begin your workout. But for some people, it's enough to say, no thanks, I'd rather not experience that. But knowing how it responds in you is kind of part of that decision. So that's beta-alanine. Now, then taking a look at creatine on its own. I would say creatine, more often than not, is the supplement that people think they need, when in reality, we're probably getting plenty of it in the food that you consume. Creatine is naturally occurring in skeletal muscle, and it's synthesized from amino acids that we consume in red meats and seafood. If you are consuming one or both of those things on a regular basis, and your workouts are low to moderate intensity, it's likely that you probably won't need much creatine supplementation in your typical day. So what creatine does is it actually helps us produce ATP, which is our cellular energy that's used for our muscle structure. Now, because we already have some naturally occurring and we're receiving some from the food that we eat, we typically have enough for, again, low to moderate intensity workouts. The people that benefit from creatine supplementation are those that are working out multiple sessions in a day, up to 5, 6, 7 plus sessions in a week. And those sessions are very long in duration and very high in intensity. In that case, it's possible that you're running through some of your cellular stores of ATP and needing to replace with more. But beyond that, your average athlete is probably getting just plenty amounts just from their consumption and their synthesis. The one thing that we know with creatine is that it actually does need a loading dose, okay? So this is something that you don't want to just start to consume the standard dose right out the gates and expect it to work. We actually kind of have to have a ramp up period that puts enough of it into our bloodstream that our body recognizes the extra level of creatine present and begins to synthesize then extra ATP. So the loading dose is generally about 5 grams of creatine 4 times daily for 5 to 7 days. So you have basically a loading week that allows you to build up levels in your bloodstream. And then after that week, you can kind of come back down to a standard dose of 3 to 5 grams for however long you plan on taking it. Now, it is important to note that if you go off of it for a period of time, you'll need to do that loading dose again to bring back blood levels to where they were previously. The thing with creatine that some people find as they start to consume is that we know that creatine actually binds water. So a lot of times you'll get kind of this bloat effect with creatine supplementation that some people like because it actually helps their muscles feel a little bit more swollen, if you will. But a lot of people are opposed to that feeling just because they feel a little bogged down with water weight. Now, if you were someone that was an aerobic athlete who was looking for long endurance runs, I think that bloating body water effect would be a little bit more of a detriment because it's more weight that you have to carry through the duration of your run, etc. So typically I find in my work with aerobic athletes, they have a tendency to stay away from creatine supplementation. But in a strength training perspective, if it's something that doesn't bother you and you find that you're getting extra energy during your workouts or you're able to complete more reps, more sets for longer duration, hopefully those increased reps or increased sets are going to produce some sort of change in muscle mass gains in the positive direction. So it can be beneficial for that, provided you don't mind the extra water weight gain. All right, so we talk about things that can be utilized before a workout, even things like creatine that may kind of work into during the workout based on your consumption style. Now we're going to kind of focus on things that are beneficial after the workout because we know that recovery is just as important as what we do before, right? If we just kind of beat ourselves down on the daily and don't give our body the chance to rest or have the proper nutrition to recover, then we're doing ourselves a disservice, understanding that there are things that we can actually do with food or with supplementary products that help us to be better and respond quicker than if we didn't choose that sort of timing or that sort of specific supplement. So first and foremost, and probably most commonly understood by a lot of people, would be some sort of protein powder. Now, protein powder comes in various types and various forms. The most commonly utilized would be whey protein or casein protein. They're both dairy-based derivatives. So if there's an allergy or intolerance, that's typically when an alternative is chosen. But whey protein is utilized best after a workout. We know that it is the most bioavailable, so our body breaks it down, absorbs it, and utilizes it the quickest. So ultimately, the faster we get the building blocks, the amino acids, the protein repair cells into our body, the faster our muscle structure can start to begin the repair from the kind of damage it's ensued during that workout. So whey protein is generally advised post-workout, and then casein is generally advised if you are planning to do a protein supplement in the evening hours. And the reason being is because casein is a slow digesting protein that breaks down over time. Now, when we sleep, we know that we release levels of human growth hormone. So if we have protein building blocks present and human growth hormone telling our body to grow and build and repair, then the two kind of work in conjunction with each other to amplify the effect of muscle protein synthesis or growth of new muscle structure. So whey protein, casein protein, both dairy derivatives. If you have a jug of whey protein at home and you're not looking to purchase a jug of casein protein, whey would be just fine for that evening hour protein snack as well, so that you don't kind of have to double down on different options. It's just so that you understand the difference between those two. And then beyond that, we have things that are plant-based like soy, rice, pea protein. No implications with a poor choice there. They're all great choices. The one thing that we do have to understand is they do break down a little slower because they have fiber present. There's more fiber in peas and rice than there would be in dairy. And a lot of times they're chosen by people who are either vegan or vegetarian or have some sort of allergy or intolerance to dairy. So each of those great choices as well, just kind of based on your personal lifestyle. Now we know that a typical dose of protein supplementation is somewhere between 20 to 40 grams, especially post-workout, right? We want a minimum of 20 grams after a workout to kind of cue the body to start the recovery process. Now, if you are a smaller framed individual not looking to build mass, then it's likely you probably need about 20 to 30 grams for your recovery. If you are a larger frame individual or have weight gain, muscle mass goals, you're probably looking at 30 to 40 grams of protein for your recovery. Protein is often used for a meal replacement or snack addition. Generally 20 to 30 for snack, 30 to 40 for meal replacement. So those are kinds of ways that you adapt the range to fit whatever purpose this supplement is working for that time. Overall goals with protein supplementation would be to decrease muscle breakdown, to tell the body, hey, I have enough building blocks present to kind of provide you with all the nutrition that you need. Don't take it from my muscle tissue. Beyond that, we kind of want to increase muscle growth and definitely increase muscle strength. And then hopefully from that as well, kind of get that added benefit of reduced soreness time so that we're ready to handle another workout later in the day, the next day, anything like that that kind of fits your schedule. Hopefully the protein supplementation will handle. Now, a lot of times I get asked protein or branched chain amino acids, amino complex or BCAAs. Now, when we're talking about each of these things, I really want you to kind of understand that in most cases, it's an either or, not an addition. Okay, so if you are consuming a protein supplement, it's not likely that you need protein and aminos on top of it. And here's the reason why. Protein in itself is a chain structure that's linked together to build larger molecules. Now, each link of that chain is actually an amino acid. So in the body, we take the large chain and we break it down into the smaller pieces, and we have amino acids circulating around that the body kind of takes and grabs and says, I'll utilize this for this and that for that. So by adding on aminos with your protein supplement, you're probably doubling down on what's already present and therefore adding extra cost to that specific supplement at that time. So ultimately what we'd want to be able to do is choose the time that you need protein versus the time that you could potentially need an amino acid supplement if they are in fact different. So amino acids, we know there are 20 plus amino acids that we synthesize and consume on a regular basis in our diet. Now beyond that, there are really only 3 that are utilized during activity, and those 3 are our branched chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, and valine. So a lot of times, branched chain amino acids specifically are utilized during and after a workout to start to replace some of the amino acids that have been burned through. Now, the difference between a branched chain amino acid supplement and an amino complex supplement is that a branched chain supplement is most likely going to only offer these 3 amino acids, where an amino complex will typically offer these plus others. So it's up to you what your preference is or what your goal is, but ultimately, similar to that of the protein supplement, our goals are the same, right? We want to increase muscle growth with the amino acid blocks present. We want to reduce soreness, reduce fatigue, and we want to prevent muscle wasting, right? The same three goals that we had before. So then what's the difference between a protein supplement and an amino acid supplement? It really comes down to caloric load. Typically, if we look at a standard dose, 1 scoop of protein, we're probably looking at somewhere around 150 to 200 calories. But with one standard supplement of aminos, you're probably looking at somewhere between 5 to 10 calories. So if you're someone whose workouts aren't quite as intense, if you have weight loss goals, if you know that you're going to consume a big meal within about 30 to 45 minutes after your workout, then amino acids may be all your body needs to say, hey, here's the building blocks, go for it, right? Lower calories, less implications of kind of filling up your stomach and overloading one particular meal with too much protein. Now, on the flip side, if you're someone who needs the calories and needs the muscular repair, it's maybe going to be a long time before your next meal, then protein might be better for you during that time period. But having the option to kind of pick and choose is what I want you to understand from this. Okay, now, next we're going to kind of pull out this one particular amino acid called leucine. And what I want you to kind of take from this as well is, again, it doesn't have to be an addition. It can be an either or it can be a reutilization of those branched chain amino acids supplements, either for a different time period during the day, or maybe you're taking it double. And the reason why leucine gets its moment in the spotlight is because we know that it has added benefit for muscle synthesis in the evening hours. So leucine is an amino acid that's actually highly present in dairy products. So it doesn't have to be supplementation here. It can be milk, it can be yogurt, it can be cottage cheese, could be regular cheese. Any of those options are all going to contain varying levels of leucine, or you can rely on your protein supplement or your branched chain supplement as well. Leucine is also offered typically in capsules or powders if you wanted to go down that individualized amino acid route. Now, I spoke before about the release of human growth hormone while you're sleeping and the goal to have some sort of protein building blocks available to tell the body, hey, utilize this for my muscular structure, for growth, for repair, for strengthening. Now, what leucine does is leucine effectively kind of flips the turbo switch. And at that point, it takes what is already present in your system and amplifies that muscular repair so that we hopefully get more growth out of it. We get less soreness between the next day. So it's just kind of that added benefit to just saying, we have protein and we have amino acids, but as soon as leucine is there, it really goes into kind of double, triple amplified effect from that. So whether or not you were to kind of focus on leucine in a branched chain supplement or leucine in a dairy product, leucine in a protein shake, the goal is to potentially consume about 3 grams within about an hour or so before bedtime. At that point, all of the building blocks are present, and then you can kind of have that in your system, to fill you up in case you were to kind of have a call in the evening hours and you kind of need some substance in your body, but B, to offer that muscular repair option to kind of be there for you in that time. Leucine is generally considered to be safe because it is an amino acid that our body does need and utilize, and it is present in our food regularly. So that is one of the added benefits of that, is we don't have to generally worry about what consumption will do. Okay, so protein, branched chains, or leucine, kind of pick and choose what you think you can best utilize at what point, understanding the different implications of each. All right, and then we kind of have to take a look at hydration, understanding that obviously that's not only over the course of the day, but before your workout, during your workout, after your workout. Hydration as it goes, if you talk about things like electrolytes, kind of ride the line between a food product and a supplement product, right? Most of the time, we know that it is a little bit more of a food product. Something like a sports drink is typically going to provide some varying level of sugar, plus some level of salt or other sort of electrolyte minerals that are needed for the body. So we don't necessarily view them as harmful or risky to consume, but what we do want to note is when we need them versus when we don't. Right? If we're sitting around all day without much activity or much load, we're not sweating, and then we're just over consuming levels of sports drinks, which have high levels of sugar and whatnot. We're just adding extra calories and extra sugar into our body that our body is going to have a hard time processing with, and could over time lead to things like weight gain instead of being utilized for a beneficial way that our body can actually take and process during activity. So when it comes to hydration in general, we know the goal is to prevent heat injury, soft tissue injury, overall systemic tolerance of heat and thermoregulation, but we don't want to always rely on thirst, right? Sometimes when we're thirsty, we are already beginning to be dehydrated. So we need to know how much we need on an average basis, understanding that most people's need for fluid is somewhere about 1 ounce per pound of body weight over the course of the day. So a 200-pound individual would need 200 ounces of fluid collectively built up from morning through evening. Whether that fluid is from water, is from a sports drink, is from coffee, tea, etc., all of those fluids add up to your total, making sure that you're kind of reaching that 200-ounce goal for that 200-pound person. Okay? At 2% loss of body water, we automatically begin to see performance deficits. Performance deficits not only leading to your response either on the job or in the gym, but it can also lead towards increased injury risk, right? So soft tissue injury, pulling a muscle, making mistakes mentally, all of those things kind of open up the door once we begin to be dehydrated. So we really want to keep tabs on that, whether it's through checking the color of your urine or doing something like weigh in, weigh out to establish any sort of fluid loss during a period of activity. So let's say you are someone who feels they need electrolytes. The things that we typically look for in electrolyte supplementation is someone who is cramping regularly. They're having different variations of muscle cramps either during a workout or throughout the course of the day. If you are someone who sweats heavily, you can take your gym shirt and wring it out and the water's all going to fall through after your workout. That is likely someone who's sweating enough to need varying levels of electrolytes. Same thing with salty sweaters, right? So you have a drip of sweat that kind of falls on your lips. It tastes exceedingly salty. Or you're someone who kind of leaves the white ring on your hats or shirts when they dry out after you sweat. A lot of times those individuals are releasing a lot of electrolytes and will need some to be replaced. So if you know that's you or you think that's you, we typically just add in some sort of electrolyte replacement. There are so many varying brands and choices out there on the market today. What you choose is up to you based on cost, availability, if it's department provided. All of that is perfectly fine by me. Ultimately, what we are looking for is sodium, potassium, magnesium, chloride, and calcium, right? So general references are probably going to be most heavily into sodium and potassium, but also understanding that magnesium affects muscle relaxation as well. Chloride kind of goes along with sodium. We know sodium chloride is salt. And then calcium is also present in most of our foods, but occasionally we do need a little extra there, right? So taking a look at what you need personally and then pairing that with some level of hydration. So most of the time what I would say an electrolyte source is either going to be a powdered packet liquid electrolyte or it's going to be a sports drink. Now, the difference between the two is generally the presence of glucose or carbohydrates. Most of these packets and tablets are simply the electrolyte with little to no sugar and little to no calories. A lot of us can get by with that because we don't actually need the extra, but sometimes on occasion we do need extra carbohydrate fuel in addition to the fluid and the electrolytes we're getting. So what that means is the times that we need to rely on sports drinks are generally the times that are longer than 1 hour in duration if it's in extremely high heat, extremely high humidity, or even in high altitude. A lot of times then our body is running through our carbohydrate stores or our glycogen stores a lot faster than we're used to on an average basis. So therefore, you might be kind of hitting that wall in your workout or hitting that wall fighting a fire a lot sooner than you normally would. And therefore, we can rely on the carbohydrates present in that sports drinks to help pick up our energy levels and provide us with a little bit more fuel to keep going for some extra duration. So again, longer than an hour, high heat, humidity, altitude. If you're sweating excessively, they will have some electrolytes. Typically, the electrolytes present in these beverages are a little bit less than that in the packets and powders. So it's not necessarily a problem to go ahead and mix the two, right? Maybe you have the packets and powders available and then you throw it in for a little extra, but that would be a time frame where you're really kind of depleted and needing to build up your stores, for example, like a strike team, right? Or fighting wildfire. So beyond that, typical brands of sports drinks are the ones that we know: Gatorades, Powerades, Pedialytes, all of the above. Very much personal preference. Each of us kind of swears by their own choice or maybe which one has the best flavor. But when we do know that we need some sort of carbohydrate supplementation in addition to the electrolytes, the goal that we're looking for here is about 10 to 18 grams per cup of fluid. Now, most of these bottles will be somewhere in a range of 16 to 20 ounces of fluid. So that's actually equivalent to 2 cups. So if we look at the nutrition facts label on these bottles, we're probably looking at somewhere in a range of 20 to 40 grams of carbohydrates per bottle for it to be an effective serving for us to receive enough carbohydrate fuel to improve our performance. Okay, so fluids by itself, water hydration, or fluid plus the electrolytes, packets and powders, or sports drink, what is needed is either circumstance-based or environment-based, or to you, your personal preference and how your physiology responds to the presence of electrolytes versus carbohydrates versus even just water. So all of these things considered, right? So there's a lot in the realm of supplements that we touched on, and then there's a lot that even we didn't get to. The take-home message with supplements in general is figure out what works best for you, right? Everybody wants to kind of converse, hey, I'm doing this, you should try it. Hey, I bought this, it's working great for me, you do it. And that's fine, and some of those things do kind of cross multiple barriers of multiple people and have a very good effect. But every once in a while, there's things that our friends or our coworkers might be doing that aren't necessarily pertinent to what our goals are or to what we may need. So do what works best for you. Everyone's physiology is different. The response of one might not be the response of another, so please keep that in mind. Do your own research before you implement anything. Figure out if it's truly needed, and if so, what's the proper dose for you or what's the advised dose for you? Are there risks versus benefits? And if so, if there is some risk, how can you either find a replacement or work around that risk to understand what it's going to do for you in the long term? And then you assess if it fits your lifestyle and routine. If something benefits mostly a strength training athlete and you are an aerobic athlete, you have the option to say, I don't think that's really going to work the best for me. Let me find something else that does something similar. Or if you're unsure, that's what I'm here for, so you can always kind of reach out to me and ask for some options. Is it applicable to your type, your intensity, the duration of your exercise routines? Does it help you with your recovery? What kind of benefit can you expect to get from it outside of that of a sports performance world, if there is any? And then obviously, first and foremost, again, does it create health implications, right? If it's not agreeing with you, there are alternatives, there are things you could do, or just cut it out entirely and see if you can kind of make your choice or meet your needs, reach your goals through food-based products, okay? The answer doesn't always have to be supplements, but they can be beneficial in certain circumstances. All things considered, if you continue to have questions after that, feel free to reach out to me. My email is here at the bottom of the screen. It is skeen_charlotte@sac.edu. I am more than happy to answer any sort of your specific supplement questions or any nutrition questions you have regarding goals, different sort of fitness goals, body composition goals, any questions you have based on your fitness test results from our testing. All of those things are what I am here for. So if you'd like to follow up with me, please do. I'm more than happy to kind of reach out to you individually or to your entire crew as a group. So again, I will look for your email, but thanks for listening as we talk through supplements.